Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, my honorable lecturers. Today, Muhammad Rizky Kivari, as the second presenters, will continue the explanation which Mrs. Sophie has given to us before. Yeah, and I will continue the material about the language policy and planning. Okay, let's see on the slide here the stages of language planning. There are 4 stages of language planning. The first one is selection, and the second one is codification, and the third one is implementation, and the last one is elaboration. Okay, the first one is selections. What is selections? The selections, it refers to the choice of a language variety to fulfill certain functions in a given society. So the language itself refers to the choice from the variety to fulfill its functions, and it will given to the society. Okay, next. The second one is codifications. The creation of a linguistic standard or norm for a selected linguistic code. It is divided up into 3 stages. The first stage is grammization. It is developing a writing system. And the second one is grammaticalization. It is deciding on rules, norms of grammar. And the last stage is lexicalization. It is identifying the vocabulary. Okay, let's move into the next part. The third part is implementation, promoting the previous stages, selection, codification, by making society more exposed to this language by the production of books, newspaper, education, and administration. Okay, the next stage is elaboration. The elaboration is the stylistic development of a codified language to meet the communicative demands of modern life and technology. Okay, that's all from the stages of language planning. We will move into the case study which happens in the United States. Okay. Language planning has become a serious concern in the United States in recent years, particularly as a result of recognizing that there is a large indigenous Spanish-speaking populations and because of continued immigration. And a recent source points out that Hispanics comprise 12% of the population in 2000s, that their proportion in the total population exceeded of Black Americans in 2002, and that is estimated that 25% of total population will be Hispanic origins by 2040. by Huntington 2004 on page 224. In recent years too, more and more languages from Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East are represented in the population. Okay, and not only is a language other than English the mother tongue of a great number of residents of United States, but some of these speakers lack proficiency in English. Okay, this is another case. In 2011, report by the National Center on Immigration Integration Policy based on the 2010 U.S. Census categorized 9% of the U.S. population as limited English proficiency, or you can say it LEP. These speakers, over 60%, are Spanish speakers, and with speakers of Chinese around 6.1% and Vietnamese around 3.3% and Korean about 2.5%, being the other language groups that comprise more than 2% of LEP population. Okay, let's move in the next slide. And then the United States doesn't have any or unofficial language, although there have been repeated attempts since 1982 to make English the official language. Those in favor of this move believe that the increasing use of languages other than English in the United States, and in particular the increasing use of Spanish, possess some kind of internal threat. So there are three main areas of concerns for policies regarding the use of languages other than English in the United States. The first one is in education, and it will be discussed in chapter 13. And the second one is in workplace practices and policies. Despite the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's 1980 guidelines, which state that English-only rules are discriminatory if applied without exception. And the last main areas is which language policies are disputed has to do with providing services in languages other than English. These services include such things as access to voting materials or driver's license, examinations form in other languages. Okay, we will move into the last two parts, which is endangered languages. According to Natal and Romain at 2000s, voices is a very similar view and say that as many as 60% of all languages are already endangered, and claim that some of the endangered languages have much to tell us about the natural world. And for example, each language is a way of coming to grips with the external world and developing a symbolism to represent it so that it can be taught and thought about. At 2000s on page 69. I'm sorry, I forgot mention the author. It is by Donato and Romain. And Harrison at 2007 on page 7 expresses a similar view. Language disappearance is an erosion or extinction of ideas or ways of knowing and ways of talking about the world and human experience. And I conclude that Crystal also deplores the loss of languages, but mainly because such loss is loss of knowledge about the possible characteristic of human languages, and not because of what such languages might tell us about any other aspect of the world around us. So we can estimate this of language loss go as high as 95% within the new century if nothing is done to stop the decline. It is for just such a reason that the Linguistic Society of America has gone on record as deploring language loss and established a committee on endangered languages and their preservation to help arrest it. But however, we should note that not all linguists agree that they should be out in the field trying to describe and possibly preserve certain language. Wait. Okay. Newman also argues that since most linguistic investigations focus on theoretical issues, they do little to preserve threatened languages. Newman says that above all, such languages need to be thoroughly documented, and this task is even more important than efforts spent in trying to preserve them. Preservation projects drain resources from the important linguistic task of primary documentations, both in terms of personnel and in terms of research funds. Okay, the last part of the languages policy and planning is the spread of English. English has also spread everywhere in the world as a lingua franca. You can see it in Crystal Book at 2003 and 2004. The United Nations has projected an interesting future for various world languages, whereas in 1960 about 9% of world population spoke English natively, with Spanish and then Hindi Urdu next with about 5% in each, with Arabic having 2%. By 2000s, the proportions were just over 6% for English and over 5% for Spanish and Hindi Urdu, with Hindi Urdu overtaking Spanish. And this is a report that I took from the book from Ronald Wardaugh. So, as Crystal has pointed out, English spread initially through conquest and then by being in the right place at the right time for use in international relations, the worldwide media, international travel, education, and now communication. So Crystal said that English will spread initially through the conquest by the right place at the right time, and it used with international relations until now communication. So we can use English as the international relations, worldwide media, international travel and educations, and especially for communicate with other country. So it is major appeal is as a lingua franca and a common second language with certain amount of internal diversity. And in December 2004, a British Council report estimated that 2 billion more people would begin learning English within a decade, and by 2050 there would be over 3 billion speakers of English in the world. The main motivation to learn English would continue to be an economic one, and an important consequence would be great increase in bilingual and multilingualism in English and one or more other languages. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have questions or comment, we will discuss it in the WhatsApp group. Your questions are welcomed. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.